Cool. So this is less about Selenium Grid itself and the technology, and more about how you should be using it if you're writing a web app to do absolutely awesome testing. So start with what is Selenium Grid, and Selenium. Okay, I don't turn things off. Selenium is a technology for doing UI testing for web stuff. And the important thing about it, it does it by driving real browser instances. So it's not a faked up DOM and a fake, some different implementation of JavaScript that's going to have its own bugs. You actually test against a real Firefox, a real Chrome, a real implementation of those JavaScript engines. And when we say Selenium Grid, we're talking about a capability that Selenium has for a shared infrastructure system. So at Redgate, we have some dedicated VMs running browsers that we can just interact with. And pretty much the test code looks the same as if you were running against a browser running on a local machine. You just ask the browser in a different way. And this makes it really easy to debug through tests. And really quite, if you want to know more about Selenium, the URL's there. So to understand how we use it, you need to know a little bit about how Deployment Manager is built. This is only part of it. Basically, we have a server, which we embed RavenDB into, and we have some WCF services. We have our portal, which is our web app, and that talks to both Raven and the services, and then the browser talks to that. And actually, if you think about it, this is sort of how you build up a web app. You have your web app, and it talks to some data store, and it talks to some APIs and services. So what we want to do for testing is actually abstract the database and the services out, and we just fake those up in our test process. So we can actually just test the UI layer. So when we're testing, our architecture looks more a bit like this, where everything goes around in a big loop. So the tests are completely in control of everything in the database and everything that's returned by services. So we only have to check we can check the UI logic and validations in the portal independently of what the service might be doing. So we don't have to wait for any long-running tasks that would be kicked off by our actions. We're just testing what's there. So how we make use of Selenium Grid for this is that because we've isolated this, we can then run 5 different instances of it and test every browser in parallel with we don't have to worry about any cross interactions between the different executions. So we can say, I expect this form to add an object to the database, and I can actually check the database and say it should have exactly this set of objects in it. I don't have to worry about objects I might have added for another test run, objects that those test actions might have put in. We know exactly what's going to happen. So there's code in shared testing I've uploaded which will do this for you. I don't want to get into too much detail of how that's working. The important part is setting up your portal so you can isolate it. And that's actually quite simple. All you have to do is make sure any information for connecting to your database and services is in your web.config. In Deployment Manager, we do that as well, but we tell our users to configure stuff in the registry, but our web.config will override it so that we can test in this way. But the registry is easier for our users to do that with, and we actually use Deployment Manager itself to deploy out our 5 different versions of this for testing against. So that's what you have to do to parallelize your test. It's really simple if you use this structure. And why do you want to do this? Well, you want UI tests to be faster. We can run through all our Deployment Manager tests to the end of our UI suite within 2 hours of a commit to Mercurial. And also, you get really nice stable UI tests. So this is, I think, Internet Explorer 10 we're running against here. But you can see over something like 2.5 months of tests, the number of builds that have failed with test failures. Most of those red lines are because we have a time limit on it, so we know when our tests are going to take us too long. But actually, the number of failing tests over 2.5 months is really low compared to most UI suites. So this is why this is so great. And that's it. You should do this if you're doing web app testing. Yeah.
How does it compare to something like test form, and how does it compare to source labs?
I've not used either of those two, so I can't tell you. Anything else?
Thanks very much.